I stood outside my new classroom, pretending to tie my shoelace. The funny thing was, my shoes didn't even have laces. I wasn't fixing anything. I just wasn't ready to walk in. Have you ever noticed how a door can suddenly feel much bigger when you don't know the people on the other side? That made me curious, because I wasn't scared of the classroom. I wasn't scared of my teacher. I wasn't even scared of learning. I was scared of one tiny question that kept bouncing around inside my head. What if nobody likes me? It sounds like such a small question, but somehow it made my legs feel heavier than my backpack. I looked through the little window in the classroom door. Some children were already talking. Some were laughing. One boy was showing everyone something he'd brought from home. A girl was coloring quietly by herself. Nobody looked frightened. So maybe, I thought, I'm the only one. Then the teacher opened the door. "Come in, Ari." I smiled. Well, I made the kind of smile you make when your face is smiling, but the rest of you hasn't agreed yet. As I walked inside, something strange happened. Nobody looked at me for very long. One child smiled. Another child didn't even notice. Someone else walked straight past me without saying anything. And my brain made a decision almost instantly. They don't like me. It made me wonder, how could my brain know that after only 5 seconds? 5 seconds isn't even long enough to finish a biscuit. So I decided to investigate. Because sometimes my brain tells me things, and later I discover it was making a very confident guess, not telling me the truth. The first thing I noticed was that I wasn't actually looking at everyone. I was only looking for one thing: signs that people didn't want me there. If someone smiled, I relaxed. If someone looked away, my brain whispered, "See?" If someone was busy talking to somebody else, definitely don't like you. It felt as though my brain had suddenly become a detective, only not a very good one. It was collecting clues, but only the clues it already believed. That made me even more curious. So during recess, I tried my first experiment. I counted how many children walked confidently into the playground. I expected almost everyone, because they all looked so comfortable compared to me. 1, 2, 3. That was it. Almost everyone else slowed down. Some looked around before choosing where to go. Some stood quietly for a few seconds. One boy pretended to be fascinated by a tree. Honestly, he stared at that tree so seriously that I started wondering if it was secretly doing magic tricks. Another girl spent nearly a whole minute rearranging the straps on her backpack. Again and again. Nobody rearranges backpack straps that many times unless they're trying not to walk somewhere else. Suddenly, the playground looked completely different. Yesterday I would have said, "Everyone already has friends." Now I wasn't so sure. Maybe lots of children were waiting for somebody else to make the first move. Maybe they were asking exactly the same question I was. Will they like me? That thought made my stomach feel just a little lighter. Not because I'd suddenly become brave, because maybe I wasn't strange after all. The next day I tried another experiment. This one was much harder. I decided to smile first. Just smile, nothing else. 3 children walked past me. The first smiled back. The second didn't even look up. The third looked straight past me. Immediately my brain announced, "Well, that didn't work." But then something happened that completely confused me. About 20 minutes later, the same boy who hadn't smiled at me asked, "Do you want to build with us?" Wait, how could somebody invite me to play after apparently ignoring me? I couldn't stop thinking about it. So later I asked him, "Were you upset with me this morning?" He looked completely confused. "What?" "You didn't smile." "Oh," he laughed. "I didn't even see you." I actually stood there for a second, wondering whether I should feel relieved or slightly offended that I was apparently so easy to miss. But it taught me something much bigger. My brain had taken missing information and quietly turned it into rejection. It hadn't asked, "What else could explain this?" It had only asked, "Does this prove they don't like me?" And that's a very different question. That evening, Maya was building a castle out of cushions, mostly because she said chairs were too bossy. I asked her, "How do you know if someone wants to be your friend?" She didn't even look up. "If they let me play." That was her whole answer. No long explanation. No complicated rules, just, "If they let me play." I kept thinking about that all evening, because grown-ups seem to decide whether people like them by conversations. Children don't. Children notice something much smaller, an empty space beside them, a toy being shared, someone saying, "You can come too," a laugh that includes them instead of happening around them. It made me wonder if belonging doesn't arrive all at once. Maybe it arrives one tiny invitation at a time. And maybe that's why it can be so easy to miss. Maybe that's why belonging doesn't arrive all at once. Maybe it arrives one tiny invitation at a time. And maybe that's why it can be so easy to miss. That made me curious again. If belonging is made of tiny moments, why do so many children come home saying, "Nobody liked me"? That sounds much bigger than one missed smile. So I paid closer attention for the rest of the week. Not to who was popular, not to who had the most friends. I watched for something else. I watched for moments when children quietly decided where they belonged. And I started noticing invisible rules that nobody had ever explained to me. Children almost never join a game because someone gives a speech. They join because someone moves over just enough to make room. Friendships don't usually begin with, "Would you like to become my best friend?" They begin with, "Want the blue marker? Can you hold this? You go first." Tiny invitations, tiny moments, tiny signals. And suddenly something made sense. Maybe my brain wasn't actually looking for friendship at all. Maybe it was looking for proof that I was safe. Because if your brain isn't sure you belong, it doesn't spend much time wondering whether you'll have fun. It spends all its energy scanning for danger. That felt like a strange idea, so I decided to test it. At lunch, I sat beside a boy I'd never spoken to before. For about 30 seconds, neither of us said anything. It was probably the longest 30 seconds in history. I started thinking, this is awkward. He probably wishes I hadn't sat here. Maybe I should move. Then he looked at my lunchbox. "You like mango pickle too?" I nodded. "My grandma makes it." "So does mine." That was it. No amazing conversation. No dramatic movie moment. Just two children discovering they both liked mango pickle. 5 minutes later, we were laughing because neither of us could open our juice boxes properly. If you'd asked me that morning whether I'd make a friend over pickle, I would have laughed. But that's exactly what happened. Not because I suddenly became more interesting. Not because I finally said the perfect thing. Because neither of us was trying to impress the other anymore. We were just sharing something ordinary. That was probably the biggest surprise of all. I had spent days trying to figure out how children become friends. But maybe that's the wrong question. Maybe the better question is, How do children stop feeling like strangers? Those aren't the same thing. Friendship comes later. Belonging starts first. And belonging often begins with things so small that adults don't even notice them. A chair pulled a little closer. Someone remembering your name. A partner chosen without asking the teacher. A joke someone waits for you to hear before they finish telling it. None of those moments look important on their own. Together, they quietly tell a child, "There's room for you here." I started wondering if grown-ups accidentally miss those moments because they're looking for bigger signs. They ask, "Did you make any friends today?" Maybe children are trying to answer a completely different question. Did anybody make space for me today? Those answers can be very different. A child might not make a best friend for months and still come home feeling happy because someone saved them a seat. Or they might have lots of children around them and still feel completely alone because nobody really invited them in. That's when I realized something else. Being alone and feeling alone aren't always the same thing. Some children are happily building something by themselves because that's exactly where they want to be. Other children are surrounded by people, but still feel invisible. You can't always see the difference from the outside. That made me think about the first morning again. The fake shoelaces, the heavy backpack, the giant classroom door. If I could go back and talk to the Ari standing outside that classroom, I don't think I'd tell him, "Don't be nervous." Being nervous wasn't the problem. It was completely normal. I think I'd whisper something much quieter. Your brain is trying to protect you. It just isn't very good at predicting who you'll belong with yet. Those are different jobs. One keeps you safe, the other takes time. And nobody, not even the happiest looking child in that classroom, can know the ending of the story before the first page has even been written. I used to think the bravest child was the one who walked into a new classroom without feeling scared. I don't believe that anymore. I think the bravest child is the one who walks in while carrying the fear with them anyway. Because courage isn't the absence of uncertainty. Sometimes it's simply refusing to let uncertainty decide who you become. That made me curious about something else. If so many children and grown-ups are quietly wondering, will they like me? I wonder how many are secretly hoping that someone else will be the first person to make room. And maybe that's where belonging really begins.